Welcome. Hoping that Facebook allows us to actually stay live today without us having to go through Zoom.
Yes.
We'll see. We'll see.
So today we're talking about the lens through which you see your child and how that affects your relationships and the ways that we habitually can kind of, and not just your child, also your partner.
Pretty much everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Kaya and I talk a lot about understanding needs in ourselves and in our children and in other people around us, because it's incredibly, insanely powerful that our needs drive, all our behavior and all of our emotional states. And so really being clear and understanding what our needs are is a really important piece. So we talk about it a lot. And today we're kind of talking about the continuum or the flip side of that and where that can go. Because most of us as mothers are very focused on the needs of our children. Like, we're really tapped into our children, often more than we understand our own needs. Like, lots of the mothers I coach can go, oh yeah, my kids need blah, 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 blah. And you say, what are yours? And then it's a bit of a silent pause. So we're really tapped into trying to understand what's moving for our children, what their needs are, and anticipating what their needs are. And there is power in that too. But when you take that too far, like when that becomes the default, like naturally over time, that becomes a default thing that runs in us. And when that happens, we start to make assumptions.
Yeah, we start to build up big stories about who our children are, who our partner is, and all the things that they need.
What they need, what they can do, what they can't do, what their limitations are, what will push them to their edge, what is
how
too
they'll
much,
respond.
how they'll respond. Yeah, and you can see it, especially if you're going through a phase where one of your children can be kind of volatile in social situations and you're really on it, like you're aware of it and you know it, and then every time you go into a social situation, you're kind of tense, waiting for it, and you're watching for the signs, like you can really, there's a piece of that that's healthy, connected, responsible, awesome parenting, and there's a piece of that where it goes so far that you become so tense and that you create kind of a container or a box for yourself to sit in, for your child to sit in, for the situation to sit in, what you guys can do and what you can't do. It kind of
trap yourselves in there, and you very much, and as you're doing that all the time, you're like Lisa said, you're creating the container, but you're also creating it so strong that it actually can make it harder for you and your child and your partner to be something different. It's like it's limiting your reality.
Yeah, so it goes from being something that's helpful and supportive to something that can actually be limiting and a bit Groundhog Day in its feel to you. And it dismisses the fact that our children, all of us, I think every human being, but in childhood it's at light speed, are in constant states of growth and flux all the time. Good morning, Naomi. Are in constant states of growth and flux. I remember once I read, many years ago when the kids were babies, I read a quote by John Kabat-Zinn. Is that his name?
John Kabat-Zinn.
Kabat-Zinn. So I haven't read his work, but awesome stuff. And he actually said in this quote, you don't have to get your kids to grow up. That Mother Nature takes care of that part, and your part is just to support the journey. And I totally paraphrase that, but the fact that our children are in a constant state of growth all the time, that is what they're driven to do. And so when we take this anticipating needs and limitations and where they can cope and all of that too far, we actually we kind of box that in and we make it harder for them to grow and expand. And the same for ourselves. Absolutely. Yeah. I would agree with, like we're growing too and changing, and our partners are growing and changing, and often we just put everyone in boxes.
We're growing and changing, and also there is so much, there's so much more possible for us and them like always than what we even see. So already what we're seeing is limited. So then if we box that in even further, we're kind of doing, we're shortchanging ourselves and shortchanging our children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't get us wrong, there is a place absolutely as connected parents for anticipating our children's needs, setting them up for success. And often we are doing that, like absolutely. And I think if we're totally honest, we're also trying to set ourselves up for success in that process, because sometimes it's hard for us to cope on the fringes. Yeah. So we're not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater when I'm saying check it all out, but have the awareness that there is the potential here for you to not throw you and your kids right in the deep end at something that feels way out there, but to always be open to there being other possibilities, and that change is always happening with our children, and that we can give them a little bit more wiggle room. And that's actually great for them to stretch. Like if we hold them back from stretching and acquiring new resiliency and skill set, then we're slowing them down, which we don't need to be doing. So there's a continuum, and this is an awareness piece. And I guess the reason we bring this up is because our audience are really, in the majority, really highly connected parents who are extremely tapped into the needs of their children, anticipating needs, setting them up for success, positive reinforcement and encouragement. And all of this is so important. We're not like saying that that's not the way to be, but have the awareness that sometimes we create these boxes to keep life manageable or doable, or keep our child in their safety zone, or whatever it is. And just remember, your child is always growing in every area. You could apply this to any area of their lives and your life that you want, and allow that wiggle room, allow that stretching, and see what happens.
It's kind of like opening up to the curiosity of the question, like, what if more was possible? What if there were other possibilities for how my child could be right now, for how we can relate right now, for who I even think they are or could be.
And sometimes even the question, is this an opportunity for some growth, for a little bit of growth, to like an experiment? Yeah, always be open to that, because you're all growing, changing, especially your children. So the second piece,
so just what Naomi said, law of attraction with a question mark, and yes, I would.
So there's an element of that in here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of things that I've read about law of attraction that are so applicable with parenting and the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them actually talk about parenting.
Yeah, we were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, Into the Vortex.
Yeah, Abraham Hicks
actually talks about parenting. So if you're interested, Naomi, you might want to dive deeper into that area. But there's so many levels that you can explore that on. So if law of attraction, and you don't want to go to the energetics of it, you can still just sit on the earthy plane of it all. Sorry, my text messages are going crazy today. I'm just going to turn off my phone. The other piece that we want to bring to today is, and it's linked to this, it could be separate, but it's kind of a linked concept, so we're bringing it up, is this idea of we are always telling ourselves, this is what our mind does naturally, this is not to put blame or guilt on us, we are always telling a story about a situation in the moment as we're living it. There is a story always running. And it is one of the most powerful questions is to just ask yourself, what story am I making up right now? Because we can make up so many clients and friends, everyone's just texting me right now, I'm sorry. We can make up so many stories. Now, some stories we might feel when we tune into the awareness, yeah, that's true. And some we might go, oh, maybe not. This isn't about that. This is about the fact that we're always telling ourselves a story and how that is shaping the assumptions and the beliefs that we're holding in the moment, what we're bringing into the situation. So if you sat and had a look, you'll realize that your head's going, oh, the story that's running right now is if I let this keep going, it could get completely out of hand and someone could then get really angry at the other person. Then there could become an argument, blah, 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 blah. I use that one because there was a pillow fight with Oka and Finn last night at my house, and I was like, what is this? And I caught myself, threat and like conflict potential here. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? I was like, whoa, what a story that's going on here. And everything about your stories is actually just made up. Like, you don't actually know, you're just guessing. And you might be guessing on the past, like you could be, that's true. But you're not allowing that wiggle room we talked about. And our stories and our perception and reality is incredibly fluid. And in the case of last night, Oka and Finn got on fine. And Oka was in a very mellow space and allowed Finn to beat him up with a pillow for a good 20 minutes without getting at all upset. Like, it was totally a story that I made up. And if I'd run with it, I would have stepped in and gone, okay, how can I handle this situation? I've been checking in with Oka. Oka, are you really okay with what Finn's doing? Like, I would have, stepped in and I didn't. I went, whoa, I'm really saying that's a story that I'm telling, that the two of them, and maybe based on past, they could have gotten into a bit of a, Oka could have got shitty that Finn was beating him up with a pillow. But it's a story. And so just asking yourself and having the awareness, what story is running right now? You do it with everyone, not just your children. You do it with yourself. You do it with the society around you.
And it doesn't mean that you have to let go of all your stories. Because just like our mind, stories are kind of judgments. Our mind does that all the time. It's kind of what the job of the mind is. But when you bring consciousness to it and you step back from it a bit and see it for what it really is, for a story and one of like many possible stories, and not the absolute truth, then it has less hold of you, and it doesn't like Lisa just described, doesn't run the show and have you step in and like make it true. It just becomes one story, and you can, from that place of awareness, from that place of consciousness, you can kind of look at it and choose, like, is this a story that I actually do want to continue?
Is this a story that I want to actually let run? Like, okay, I'm taking this story as my operating instructions.
Yeah.
Your mind will do it. Your mind will always automatically be running at least one story, and sometimes a couple at the same time. That's its job, to make meaning, to interpret, to give context. It's what it does. Good morning, Michelle. How do you catch yourself in that moment to recognize that story? Is there a trigger or a prompt that helps you in doing that? So the way that I have been looking at it recently, and the way I caught it last night, is through what we call the practice. So I actually have a practice at the moment, which is one simple thing, and it is just over and over a few times a day, I ask myself, what story am I running right now? What story am I making up right now? And that's it. There's so many ways to implement the practice, but so I'm doing a deep dive in that. That's why I'm seeing it everywhere. And after a while of doing that, it becomes natural to you.
So if you realize that this is something that you really want to work on, like you're feeling that, oh, this would really serve me to catch myself in awareness of these stories, then you can make that your practice. Your practice, like the thing that you choose to focus a little, like more of your intention to than anything else, and like is that question, what story am I making up right now, or some similar question. And then it's kind of like in the moment right now, you make that commitment that whenever I remember, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask that question. And the more you do that, the more you remember to do it.
Yeah. And depending on where you're going with the practice, you can put some support structures around it. So you might set your alarm on your phone to go off a couple times a day and just enact it, so you get into the habit of it. You might have, I don't know if you can see, I haven't used these as this for a while, but when I first got these rings, they're stacking rings. When I first got these, they were the working rings, marriage rings of my marriage. But eventually I adapted them over to the practice, and so I would look at them, and then once I enacted my practice, I would move it to the other finger on the other hand. And then throughout the day, it was really clear for me to see, oh, there's my practice again. Like I would always have a different sort of configuration on my hand that would be jogging me about my practice and where I was with it.
We actually got bangles or bracelets for womb space clients last year
Mm.
to wear on one wrist, like 4 of them, and when you enacted your practice, you put on the other one. They made noise as well.
Which kind of jangled and
when I
reminded
used
you.
them, it was really effective. I'd be driving my car and go, "That's right, my practice," because I'm aware of my bangles.
So you don't have to do anything special, but it's about conscious awareness, and then just ask yourself. For me, I find my most powerful practices are asking myself a question. But that's me personally. Own your practice, however works for you. But that story is so. It's very matrix. When you look at your story, you go, I'm just really making all that up. Like, that might be true, but it might not be true. I'm just totally making up that that's what it is. It's a really interesting thing to do. And as you work your way down, you realize how fluid the whole perception of reality really is, that it's just collections and collections of stories that we're telling ourselves in the day.
And it's being created.
On the fly.
Mm.
Yeah. And so you can take that a step further and start to, in my case, I just sat back with the awareness that, wow, I was holding that story. I didn't actually decide to hold a different story, but you can. There's nothing to say you can't pick another story. You could easily choose a different story. And that goes along with what we talked about at the beginning about finding the balance between anticipating your children's needs and setting them up for success and knowing where their comfort spaces are, etc., which we all do, right through to when that gets so locked in because we're trying to keep it manageable for our kids and ourselves. I think we should really be honest about the ourselves piece, because there's sometimes when I create control freaky stuff, and it's because I'm not coping. It's because
because we're embarrassed or worried or like, I don't want my kids to show up in a certain way around other people,
or I'm really tired today and I just can't do it. Whatever it is. Sometimes when we go to that extreme and we hold a really strong story around that is not changing and inflexible, we don't have that awareness that, our children are in a constant state of growth.
Yeah.
It might be different this time. We don't allow wiggle room. We don't allow growth and change to occur as easily. And it can then become a bit limiting for your relationship with them, for them and their growth, for you and your growth, like all the different...
It can actually make it so that you create exactly what you don't want to create.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing this to try to control the situation, but you control it so much that you make what you don't want to have happen.
Yeah. So it's a fine line. There's a continuum to play with here. Yeah. And the reason that we bring it to light is because all of our women, all of our tribe, they're all about understanding their children's needs and anticipating what they need and setting them up for success and positive reinforcement, all of those pieces. And so we're just bringing this to you today so you have a bit of awareness, like, maybe we could kind of stretch a little bit and see what happens. Maybe there's wiggle room there. Our children are always, always changing and growing faster than we are. We're always in a state of growth as well. But our children, they're doing it at light speed. So remember that. Stay open to that idea. Wonderful. Thank you. That is so helpful. The physical association would be really grounding too. I get so lost in the story. We'll certainly be implementing a practice. Beautiful, Michelle. Yeah. It's really easy to get lost in story. And once you start to work that practice for, I would say just even a few days, but like a week or so, that will start to become more normal for you. That whole breakdown will start to happen. You'll start to see everyone's stories. It's like, oh, wow. And I guess we do it coaching too. But, wow, that's a really strong story that person has. Or, oh, yeah, they're operating with that story right now. Or, oh, look, I'm holding a story about that, about their story. Like, you can see the stories. It's like this step back from the whole. Every time I talk about it, I feel very matrixy. But it is. It's kind of that sense of, oh, yeah, everyone's just walking around,
you step out of
interacting with a bunch of stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any extra questions for us this morning? See people here. Hello. Could be evening where you are. I've just gotten, it's too hard with all our time zones.
Yeah.
I just say it for where I am. So good morning. But any questions, any comments? Otherwise, I think we're done on the content today.
And we will answer questions whether.
Oh yeah, we'll do it definitely on the replay. We always get back to it.
And if we say goodbye and you've just posted your question,
we'll post it straight after.
Totally.
Cool. So, I don't think we've got anything else to say. We're trying an experiment today. We've got another laptop in front of us and we're trying to record our podcast at the same time.
Oh yeah, we're going to be getting back to our iTunes podcast. So all of these will be on our blog, on our website, and on iTunes and on YouTube. So
yes,
so many different options.
Multi-streaming is where we're attempting to go and get it in one go.
And you're so welcome, Michelle and Naomi.
Oh, thanks, ladies. Okay, have an awesome day. See you next week.
Bye-bye.